Now, according to reports, it's not official yet because remember, not until New Year's does Zoran officially take the reins of New York City. But it has been suggested and reported that from newly leaked documents to the general, New York City Mayor-elect Zoran Mamdani plans to terminate all city contracts with companies tied to Israel and pull city funds from banks that finance the Jewish state. You're talking billions of dollars on the line here. And as much as I can say that there are multiple reasons why the consensus was against Zoran becoming mayor of New York City, this probably as much as any reason is why they could not allow him to win. And they did everything they could within their capacity to stop him from winning. This isn't about the Jews are in danger. No, it's about Zionist Jewish money that's in danger. See, a lot of that money moves through Wall Street, and they want to make sure that their precious little nest egg, that is the Zio genocidal state, doesn't get touched. And they know that if Cuomo had gotten in there, nothing would have changed. Status quo all the way. But Zoran, he's going to disappoint. He's going to elate. He's going to do a few things in between. But if he keeps his word on this, I thought it was big enough that he won on the back of saying, I'm not on board with Israel. If he actually goes for the throat of their financial baseline within this entire country, well, then he better have the best Secret Service around, because that's when his life is going to be in danger. It's going to be in danger already, just from this report being announced. Here's another example of why things are going to get dicey for Zoran and for a lot of other people in this country. The Zios know that their backs are against the wall now. And so here is a sermon from earlier today from a rabbi in New York City who's not too happy about Zoran becoming the mayor of New York City.
Curse, you should be blessed to live in interesting times.
Amiel Hirsch, senior rabbi of the I don't know synagogue, but I think he's going to let us know in a moment.
These are such interesting times. Anxious times, too, fraught with challenges and risks. What an astonishing week here in New York City. I congratulate Zoran Mamdani on his victory. It was substantial. It was convincing. It reflected the will of the majority of New York voters. Mayor-elect Mamdani won just over 50% of the total vote in a three-person race. He ran an outstanding campaign that inspired legions of New Yorkers, especially young people.
And that's about all of the good grace that he's going to give them. At least he acknowledges that the electoral process worked in this case. The people are not on board with what the Zios want. That probably doesn't sit too well with him or his congregation. But nevertheless, he's got quite a sermon to deliver. Obviously, we're not going to cover all of it, but we're going to cover the most important parts of it.
They sent important messages to us. It would be wise to analyze and understand them. It was quite a remarkable achievement in at least three ways. Mr. Mamdani has practically no managerial experience.
So, of course, he wants to go right for the, oh, he doesn't have any experience, so let me give him a nice little kneecap about, hey, how the hell are you going to do the job? You are just a novice. Many elected officials were novices over the course of time, and they learned. Better to have somebody who isn't experienced, who's not corrupt, than to have someone who is experienced and is very corrupt.
And was nonetheless elected to manage what may be the most complicated political bureaucracy in the entire country. He's a socialist in the most capitalistic city in the history of civilization, and he's an anti-Zionist.
Sounds to me like pretty positive qualities if you're going to elect a mayor to try to turn things around in an unlivable, unbelievably expensive city. I know he's trying to deliver these statements as some type of a gotcha, but I highly doubt that anyone outside of what is officially known as, ladies and gentlemen, the Stephen Wise Free Synagogue. Stephen Wise Free Synagogue. This is located on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. So not much of a surprise in terms of who this audience is placating towards. It wouldn't surprise me if Jerry Seinfeld went to this synagogue.
In the most Jewishly populated city in the world, there are more Jews who live in New York than Jerusalem. I uphold and honor the democratic process. And therefore, if the mayor-elect reaches out to me, either in my capacity as the senior rabbi of the Stephen Wise Free Synagogue or in my role as the president of the New York Board of Rabbis, of course, I will readily engage in dialogue and offer my support wherever possible.
Well, he's not going to offer any support. He may offer his criticism, among other things. You know, the one thing about not just liberal Zionists, but just Zionists or just liberals in general, especially wealthy liberals, they constantly love to talk about their credentials. As the president of the Board of Rabbis of New York City and as the leading rabbi in this particular congregation, I welcome the mayor to reach out to me for guidance and counsel. I probably would avoid this guy if I were you, Zoran. Just a thought.
If he's a good mayor, it will redound to the benefit of all New Yorkers. This synagogue has been a beacon of human dignity for over a century, and from the outset recognized that engagement in the public sphere is necessary in order to advance Judaism's moral aspirations. In addition to founding this, the Free Synagogue, Rabbi Wise co-founded the NAACP, the ACLU, and was a formidable defender of labor unions and workers' rights. He offered his cooperation to local and national political leaders wherever he or they felt that he could make a difference. And we will too. Rabbi Wise was also the leading Zionist of American Jewry during the entire first half of the 20th century. His liberal worldview was no impediment to his Zionist commitments, the opposite. It was because he was a liberal that he became a fierce defender of the right of the Jewish people to a national home in its national homeland.
Now, of course, the critical point here that doesn't get mentioned, that I pointed out recently in a clip that we're going to play that will drop in the next day or so regarding Woody Allen from the 1960s. They don't regard Palestinians as people, just call them Arabs, lesser than. So when this liberal Zio is talking about the homeland of the Jews, which is a non-starter, there is this complete disregard of the humanity of the Palestinians. But because he's a liberal Zio, he doesn't do it with coercive language. He doesn't say the type of anti-human, sadistic, coded language that the likes of Randy Fine and even Ben Shapiro and many others like to use. He tries to be diplomatic in his inhumanity, but it gets worse.
This was no contradiction in his eyes. To the contrary, Zionism constituted an extension of his universal values, not their negation. It was the fulfillment of the liberal dream of self-determination that applied equally to Jews. You cannot fight for the liberation of nations and exclude only the Jewish nation, Rabbi Wise preached. The struggle for human dignity applied to Jews as well. The right of peoples to live free applied to Jews as well. And thus, Rabbi Wise contended vigorously with anti-Zionists, both within and without the Jewish community, and so will we. Rabbi Wise loved the Jewish people with all his heart and with all his soul, and ferociously defended the security and dignity of American and world Jewry.
Oh, he just kind of lays it right out there, doesn't he? And you wonder why the likes of Nick Fuentes are gaining so much momentum at a fever pitch right now. Just remember, guys, I found this myself. This is not a clip that's circulating online. So you're getting kind of an exclusive here. But this is what they sell to their congregation. Who's messing with my video?
And so will we.
Jen, I don't know what you're doing back there, but please don't do that. I want to be very clear about this. And I saw this in the chat. The people who are going to this type of synagogue very likely are being indoctrinated from birth, multiple generations, and now is being passed along. Hey, whatever, let them call it. There is a good chance that if this does go viral, that he'll do the same thing that the other synagogue in Manhattan decided to do. You know, I haven't even covered, although I'm not really sure if they are videotaped or live streamed, I should say, within Wasserman Schultz's synagogue, which is in, I believe, Weston or Davie. The ones that they do on Miami Beach, where Jen grew up, right in North Miami Beach, a pretty well-known synagogue there that's very Zionist. And then you also have Boca Raton and places like that. But this is one of those mask-off moments where if you thought it was bad before Zoran became mayor, you wait and see how this is going to turn out and how much worse it's going to get. Not that we couldn't have anticipated that it wouldn't get worse, but what's going to happen if Zoran actually goes after what is most stereotypical as it may be, what is most important to the Zion Nazis, and that is their money. If he starts messing with those city contracts directly linked between New York City and Israel, he better have armored guard around him at all times. That is the end game. This is probably one of the most affluent congregations in the Jewish community in all of New York City. This is on West 68th Street. So if this is where I think it is, which is right by Central Park West, this is the creme a la creme. He's speaking to an audience of people that give a lot of money to the state of Israel, that have a lot of investment between New York City and Israel, and probably many places in between. So he's not just preaching to the choir. He's sending out a signal to anybody who's going to try to get in their way, with very coded language, mind you, but there is more to go.
The predominant issue in these elections were affordability, transportation, economic disparity, taxation, poverty, crime, immigration. Judaism has much to say about each of these issues, and I expect that in the coming years we will have ample opportunity to discuss the application of millennia-old Jewish values to these contemporary issues. For now, I will focus on the specific anxiety and threats felt so deeply by so many Americans in the Jewish community in New York and throughout the country. I met the mayor-elect in late August, after the primaries. Several prominent and liberal New York City rabbis spent an hour with him. We were interested in all of the issues that could make life better for New Yorkers. But most of our discussion was focused on the specific concerns of the New York Jewish community. We entered with open hearts and open minds. Most of us had never met the candidate, and we were interested in taking the measure of the man. As the meeting unfolded, our mood steadily darkened and our fears increased. We were impressed with Mr. Mamdani's high intelligence and considerable political skills. He's a quick thinker and possesses an easy facility with words. He connects with people in a deep way. And it was these very political skills that heightened our anxiety. Zohran Mamdani is an ideologically committed, dogmatic opponent of the Zionist idea.
That's probably the biggest reason why he got over 100,000 volunteers in the New York metropolitan area to volunteer their time for his campaign. That's the biggest reason. I mean, certainly there were others. The fact that he isn't corrupted by corporate special interest money. The fact that he is a sympathetic figure. He genuinely comes off as someone who cares for the least of these. His language is very socialist in many respects. Not that I agree with all of it by any stretch, but I know he's a good dude. He definitely strikes me as somebody who is smooth and even shrewd, but he's shrewd in a good way because he knows how to make it through the trials and tribulations of becoming a political powerhouse, which he now certainly is, and then some. And what I get, the vibe I'm getting from Rabbi Hirsch, isn't one of, I mean, yes, it's anger for sure, but it is resentment, cowardice, and fear. They're afraid that there might actually be somebody who is going to deal with their grift and what they've been able to get away with for as long as they have. And the fact of the matter is, I'll borrow a line from my partner and colleague, pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. I've often pointed out that Zios are never told no, especially the ones that have money and power, real money and power, like this guy and his congregation. So even in the backdrop, in the face of an obvious genocide, the worst genocide that this world has seen since the Holocaust, and all the while they just assume that, well, we're the chosen people, we could do whatever we want. Not anymore, you can't. Well, you can for now, but it will not last. And it's obvious it's not going to last. Statements like this is proof positive that they know that they're on borrowed time. Now, for them, it's a little different because of their affluence. However, make no mistake, they know what's going on. Even in their very secluded bubble of an existence. They know that the world is rejecting their ideology. But more importantly, the United States, as a consensus, is starting to reject their ideology. And when we get committed to making change, amazingly enough, in the United States, it changes pretty quickly.
He is not simply a critic of Israel. Policy differences are central to democratic discourse and entirely legitimate. No country and no government are beyond criticism, even harsh, even unfair criticism. It's a false accusation, a red herring to accuse Israel supporters of castigating critics of Israeli government policy as anti-Semitic. It is not true. Jews themselves are Israel's fiercest critics. But Mayor-elect Mamdani does not believe in coexistence. He does not believe in two states for two peoples.
That's because it is one state, because it is not a state that belongs to you. You committed genocide and apartheid, and you stole it. Multiple generations. And river upon river to the sea of blood of Palestinian children and then some. And I guarantee that this synagogue is a major financial contributor to the genocidal cause of Israel. So this man is projecting, like most Zionazis tend to do. They say versus what they do, their concerns are an illusion compared to reality. But as I've stated, they do see themselves as superior. And by that metric, they cannot see the reality of their failed ideology. To unsee it is to not live in the very comfortable, affluent existence that they have insulated themselves in for the past 3 generations. But that's about to change.
His opposition to Israel is existential. He believes that Israel has no right to exist at all as a Jewish state in any territory.
Correct. It doesn't.
This, of course, is the position of Israel's most implacable foes. It is the ideology of Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, and their supporters in the West.
Nice little dig there. Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, and their supporters, sympathizers, if you will, in the West, i.e., the people who do not support us in the United States of America, of which there's a hell of a lot more of them than there are of you, especially now. Oh boy. Buckle up, Buttercup.
Reason this talented politician with such impressive verbal skills has been unable to convincingly explain away his support for the refrains globalize the Intifada, free Palestine, from the river to the sea.
So they're still going with that bullshit. Still going with it. Still trying to sell it. No matter how much the wheels are turning in the other direction. Rabbi Hirsch, you're all alone. Well, you're not all alone, but you're kind of all alone. And this is not going to end well. The one time in this entire sermon he mentions the Palestinians, he mentions it in a derogatory fashion.
Is that these slogans represent his core beliefs. he doesn't hide it. To the contrary, he's proud of it. The struggle for the Palestinian liberation was at the core of my politics and continues to be, he proclaimed in a 2023 keynote speech to the Democratic Socialists of America. None of this is about coexistence. What most of those who shout globalize the Intifada mean is October 7th.
And there it is. This is about a 30-minute sermon, and I thought this was an appropriate place to end it. But after all that ranting and raving, after all his posturing, he finally admitted the truth. This is about globalize the Intifada. No, it is about the freedom of the Palestinian people. And you say globalize the Intifada is about more October 7th, which means you are a liar, you are a bigot, and your ideology is doomed.